G'day there, Paul Lyons here, doing another of my Lyons on lockdown paintings. This one's number 31, so we've been locked down for a good time now. Tonight I'm going to attempt to paint the view of Mount Cook from Lake Matheson, which is a famous view. And the lake in the early morning is often very still, and there is a reflection of the mountains behind on the surface of the lake. This particular morning, the mountain was mostly swathed in cloud, but the peak was just visible, just poking its head out through the clouds. So off we go. Let's put a whole lot of water down. So there's lots of cloud coming in and around all sorts of masses of rock. So we'll just wet everywhere that we think that this might affect. Actually, there's no reason to stop the wetting at the top of that dark hill, because the darkness of the hill will cover over whatever pale cloud there is there. Actually, I don't need to pick up any blue. There's blue on the palette. And there's not a lot of blue in the sky. There's a sort of strip along the top, really, and none of it's particularly deep blue. Might be a bit more even than that, though. So I'll just let it spread a little. Maybe with a bit more encouragement. There we are. Let's even it out to some extent. So we've got some darker colours in the sky, still fairly bluish. And there's a peak underneath there that's hiding away, and maybe some shape in the clouds in and around various places. And then the cloud down here is getting a bit darker because it's lower down and there's less light able to get to it because there's hills all around. So darken in and around there, and again I shouldn't be worrying about those colours going into the hills, because the hills themselves are going to be a whole lot darker. So let's just pick out a bit of lightness in amongst those clouds, because they're not uniformly dark. Again, I think wet them all a little bit more so that the colours can flow, and then give them some gravitational encouragement. Those edges. Alright, well, we'll see if that's going to work as the cloud cover over the hills. And there's also steam rising off the lake, which is kind of interesting in that not only is the colour of the shape, not only is the shape of the hills reflected in the water, but also the steam rising up from the water vapour, I should probably say. The water vapour rising up from the surface of the lake is also reflected in the surface of the lake. So we've got steam, as it were, rising up and rising down. If you'll allow me that choice of expression. Okay, so there's a narrow band of green along the edge of the lake. Quite a bright green, not too virulent, so we'll turn it down a bit. And then we'll try to put in very dark green trees. So there's just a row of trees on the other side of the lake. Sort of milled into this fog is the wrong word, misty, I suppose, area down a little bit lower. And of course the trees are not all the same shape, they're not all quite the same colour, although they probably look that way at first glance. And there's a section which just looks like a hedge. We need a bit more liquid along there if we're going to try and get this same damp feeling in the trees at the bottom as we have in the trees above. So let's do that. I Don't imagine that the trees have to be an exact match, but I suppose it does any harm if they are. I haven't quite managed to produce a soft edge there where I really need one, so let's just wipe out some of that hard edge where the water has reached. I mean, the water that I've added to the painting, not the lake. Interesting one, isn't it? How they've, there we are, just splotted out a bit. Technical term that, splotting out. Newly invented, just for the purpose of this evening's painting. So let's put in some water so that the hedgy section will behave more or less the way it does above the bank as it does below. So we then have more shape to the tree line as it goes. Further across to the right. So I seem to have lost the water in this region, don't I? Although it's getting away from the misty section, so maybe it doesn't matter all that much. And we've got some more taller trees in this region. So something going up there, and something a bit more defined on this side as well. And let's have the end of the grassy section of the lake coming along there. More virulent green along there. I suppose this really matters a huge amount, but let's fill in that. There's actual growth there, and actual growth there, or a reflection of actual growth. Alright, so that gives us a reasonable feeling of those two sets of growth, the actual growth and the reflection of actual growth. I wonder if I might just put some water in there. And see if we can introduce the mist going up and down. My watch has just decided it's going to deliver me a whole pile of messages. Alright, now, I think that's pretty much as I want to do in that area at the moment. And now it's a case of trying to do something with the mountains that is not too harsh, because they're fairly well hidden by the clouds, or they're fairly well masked by the clouds. So I'm going to put on some paint and then I'll take it off again, I think. And I also need to dampen there, don't I, so that the colours are not so hard-edged. Okay, and there's various places where the rocks are covered by snow, of course, so that's kind of dealt with that, I think. And then there's another, let's find something that hasn't got paint in it. I cleaned about 1 million brushes, I can't find any that aren't covered in paint. So it's probably too wet. Let's see. I think there's difficult for my reference photo to tell whether there's a ridge going up there, and I can't remember from other paintings. I'm sure there are people who know the area well who can say, oh yes, there's a such and such there, but I think that'll just about do. Over here there's more hill that's sort of disappearing up into the sky, or there's more mountain that's covered by cloud. So there's something disappearing up into the sky at that point. And I've got this pencil line in here which suggests that the mountain's coming down at that point. It's not actually in fact until it's further along. So should all sort of disappear into ambiguity at about that point there. We don't know whether it goes up or goes down, so I'll just bring in a little bit of colour into the area between those two pieces of rock, so that we get the feeling that there's some cloud there. Before I get too far along that line, I'd better do something with this as well, because that's also an area that's got cloud coming over it. So oops. There we are. That's introduced a feeling that the cloud is there's a tendril going off in that direction. There's bits of cloud up there. It's quite a nice effect, and similarly there. Now let's see if we can do something similar along here. Just introduce little bits of something visible through the clouds, and it's not making it clear, deliberately not making it clear whether those somethings are darkenings in the cloud or rock. So there's some reasonably clear rock up here, and then what's that? Is that more rock? Okay, now there's a good deal of big rock formations down here, on the base of the mountain basically. Perhaps I should say the base of the mountain essentially. So let's again let's give that a soft edge, because it's just partly covered by cloud, so we'll bring some dark paint in and around these treetops. It's not going to be as dark as the treetops. Oh, it's green. Why is that green? Oh, I was painting this down here, was I? So let's give it a rockier colour. Oh, I suspect that's far too dark, isn't it? Yep. It's all to do with relative darkness of things, and that's probably too dark, I would think. So let's blot some of it up, shall we? Since we've started doing it that way, we'll keep on treating it that way. Hopefully we'll get a consistency about the... Ooh, didn't mean to do that. Which you probably can't see because my hand's in the way, but put a splot of paint in the middle of a hole through the tree, which was supposed to just fill that hole. It must have been damp because it's spread everywhere. Oh well. That's the way things go sometimes. So we're trying to use this brush to even out the colour in there. It's not done a very good job here, has it? Alright, so we've got another dark hill over here, which is, while I'm waiting for this and this to dry, I'll put in the dark hill here, and maybe I'll just be a bit circumspect about that. I don't really want to mess up this edge, although, yeah, no, I want there actually to be an edge there, because it's the, aside from the trees, it's the one thing that really gives us the indication of reflection in the lake. So let's just be a little bit cautious about doing that. Or alternatively, let's dry the wet sections. Okie dokie, that should protect this edge from when I wet it before I add in the next layer of paint. So let's just allow there to be a bit of colour in this hill. Don't really mind what it is. That's going to just affect the paint slightly. I don't want to run the brush along the edge and then go and fill in the rest later, because if I do that, I know that I'll end up with a difference between the colours of the paint along this. So if I just go along here and fill in, just do the edge, and then come along later and do the middle, then I'll have this will have dried, and I don't want there to be a distinction between the brush stroke on the edge of the hill and the rest of the body. But we are getting a bit of colour variation in the hill. Now, delicate bit trying to go around these trees, and same sort of problem that I don't want to see that started to dry there, so I'm going to go over it again. So I need to be quite quick about this. There's an awful lot of watercolour is timing, trying to get things done before something else dries and produces a hard edge where you don't want one. And I mean, this is one of the areas where some people would use masking fluid. On some occasions I would use masking fluid, trying to make it easy to cut in around these trees, because of course if I'd masked the trees, then I could have just put a big wash over this entire area without having to worry about obliterating the trees underneath. At the moment I'm having to be quite careful, and see that's drying there, but it's not actually too bad in terms of the shape of a hill. Let's try and get rid of some of these little white spots. Don't need little white spots in the middles of the trees, because we can't see through the trees to little white spots. Yeah, I mean that area where the paint is not quite consistent is in fact, it's not accurate in the sense that the hill isn't shaped like that, or I don't think the hill is shaped like that, but it has a hill sort of nature to it, doesn't it? No. So of course the colour in the lake, because it's affected by the water, is not going to be identical to the colour of the hill, and I think you can get away with quite a lot anyway. That people are not going to go pixel by pixel across your painting and say, oh, that's not quite the same colour as that over there. And in fact it wouldn't be anyway. And if we were being really precise about these sorts of things, then the colours here would be very close to the colours there, and the colours further back down here, where we're looking more directly down on the surface of the lake, would be darker, because that's the way that the reflection works. When you're looking down on the surface of the water, you see further into the water. When you're looking at it horizontally, you tend to see the reflection rather than the colour that's in the depths. But I don't think I'm going to bother about trying to do that, because in fact we're not we don't have any bits of lake that are that we're looking directly down into. See if we can even out that darkness and just have something that sort of vaguely resembles. It's not going at the right angle, or the proper angle, the correct angle. So let's see if we can blot that out a bit. Yeah, I think I'd better stop before I mess it up too much. All right. Now, I think we probably need. I think we probably need to darken these trees quite a lot. They're too pale and wishy-washy. And one of my claims about watercolour is that I don't do wishy-washy, so I better de-wishy-wash those trees. That's a technical term. You'll find it in all the better dictionaries of painting terminology. So let's start with the hedge and its corresponding reflection, to try and do them together so that they're a matching pair. Was I using a brush to do that before? Humph. Not a clean brush. That one now. It's probably long since that it was clean. But just see how that goes. More dark colour. One of the things that people like about particular brushes is that they hold a lot of paint. Sometimes it can be convenient if they run out of paint at the right time. So at the moment I want to be able to do the tops of the trees very dark, and then it would be ideal if the paint ran out towards the bottoms of the trees. So that I could do the areas where the mist is. But this brush is holding a lot of paint in it, so oh well, we'll artificially make it run out by squeezing it dry, or dryish anyway. So, too far. Oh no, we might be just lucky getting a bit of colour we can drag down from the tops of the trees to where the mist is doing its thing. So let's go back to doing darker colours on these trees. There is some light coming from the left here. I'm going to try to leave. I think I've got a tree out of position there. I'm going to try and leave the left-hand sides of some of these trees, at any rate, with a little bit of light on them. I think this trees here are not really being mystified to the same extent as the ones in the middle of the painting. Again, we seem to have developed little spots of white that do not correspond to what you can see through the trees, because through the trees what you see is dark hill. So those little spots of white, which in a painting of trees against the skyline would read as views through the branches of the sky, are reading as views through the branches of little spots of white in this case. So that wishy-washy problem, which is kind of resolving now a little bit. If I was an oil painter or an acrylic painter, I'd probably deal with that by lightening the lights, but it's not an option that's available to the watercolour painter to the same extent. So you do the opposite, you darken the darks. A bit too much blue in those colours. I mean, that's not a problem in itself. We've got a little bit of light on the left-hand edges of these trees. too much on that reflection, but hopefully that won't catch people's attention too greatly. I've kind of lost focus on the mist. That soft edge that I wanted is not really happening. You have too many brushes in your hand, it's just so easy to put the damn thing down in the middle of the sky and you've got a sudden great blot that you didn't really want. Well, you didn't want at all. Maybe there's an opportunity for some mist there, because I've got a little lightish edge there. Whether that's visible in the image that the camera has taken or not, I don't know, but it might just be worth trying to make something of. So, trees over here are catching a little bit of light on the left-hand side. I think those two are the only ones that are really doing it successfully, but catching a little bit of light on the left-hand sides. The trees over here have just got a big block of mountain behind them, so they're not catching much light at all, so we don't have any real highly lit areas on those trees. Well, we don't have any highly lit areas on any of the trees, but we don't have any distinctly different areas because they're being lit. They're just dark. That's helped a bit, I think. Now the question is, what am I going to do about these light areas, which have managed to insinuate themselves into the sides of those trees? Because it's going to be very difficult to try and, because that should be the colour of the reflection, and it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be impossible to match the colour of the water. So I'm just going to hope that they're about the right darkness and that people won't particularly notice, well, that hard edge in particular. I suppose I could, dare I? Yeah, go on. I don't want to lose that light bit of green there. If I just do that, that's hidden it a bit, I think. This hard edge down here. I think the hills are too clear against the clouds. There's more ambiguity in the reference photograph that I'm using about where the hills are and where the dark is cloud cover. So I'm going to try. I quite like some of this cloud effect, but I think we need to do something about that. Okay, I was trying to introduce some mist into that area at the bottom of the thing I'm calling the hedge, because first of all it looked very hard-edged. I mean, in reality it is fairly hard-edged, but there's just a little bit of mistiness visible there, and also because I've got mistiness indicated quite clearly on the reflection. So let's just do that. And let's also introduce a bit of colour down there. This is because I've darkened the paint at the top. The fact that I've got, I think that's doesn't really matter there, I don't think. The edge of the mistiness, yeah, don't worry about it. So let's tidy that up a slight amount, I think, yeah. And pull that down a bit, some of that colour. And I was going to, oh, did I see you? I was going to do something with the sky, because I feel that the mountains and the clouds should be more ambiguous. One of the things I like about this scene is that really it's quite difficult to say, oh look, there's mountain here and there's cloud there. It's they're kind of blended together. So I'm going to introduce some more colour into the sky, which I think is a bit of a gamble. We could destroy the painting. Just checking to see how wet it is. Not I think quite wet enough. Maybe in this area under the big peak. Maybe I should try and think what exactly it is that I want to be ambiguous, because I think maybe I want this to be ambiguous, because a lot of the rest of it's, I mean, sort of coming in and going out of clarity along here. And what colour have we got on this brush? Just nondescript colour. So there's a fairly large lump of cloud up here, which starts there. Melds in with the hills, and comes over there. That's little bit of dry brush there is possibly helping to ambiguate things. But maybe not over the top of the hill, maybe just at the side there. That's getting more, isn't it? I have the feeling of we're not quite sure where there's hill and where there's cloud. And some quite dark areas, and underneath there where the bottom of the cloud is. It's probably going to bloom because that's a wet brush. I really should be using a thirsty brush rather than a wet one, so as to take paint off rather than put water in. And again, just soften up these edges so that it's not working very well. I think I've left it too long to dry. It's already developing a hard edge. But yeah, that's sort of no longer quite so obviously areas of rock and areas of water vapour. Don't like this upward angle here. Suggests that the rock is influencing the way this cloud is, which is presumably behind it, not rising up over the top of it. So let's try to remove. Is that clean? I think it might be clean. Not terribly. But that's probably not a big deal. Yeah, that's sort of nice. Okay, this is, I think, one of those stop and have a look at it moments. So that was all just to cover up a little white edge there. So I think there's enough complexity in those clouds to give us quite an ambiguous feeling for where the rocks are. I mean, they do stand out in places. But I don't want them to, want people to have to think about, oh, where's the tree and where's the where's the mountain and where's the cloud. So I'll have a look at it, and if I think it's in need of more work, I'll get back to you. Otherwise, good night. Well, g'day there. I'm back again, and I've had a look at this, and although it looks as though the trees and the hills behind them have a good deal of contrast, when I stuck this up at the end of the room and looked at it from a couple of metres away, it became very apparent that the hills and the trees are too close together in terms of value. So I've kind of made these darker already, so I think what I'm going to have to do now is to try to make the hills lighter, which is a dangerous thing to do, but well, we'll give it a go and see whether we can improve the painting. Use a smaller brush, I think. I can just hear my daughter saying, "Leave it alone, Dad, you'll ruin it." She may very well be right. But, so the approach is to wet the area, and I mean this is taking some paint off, but that's not what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm just trying to make sure that it's sufficiently wet, and probably doesn't actually really matter at the tops of the hills. I should just be concentrating on the area around the tops of the trees, because that's where I need the contrast. So in the reflection as well as the main part of the painting. So let's just do a bit of judicious blotting, or injudicious blotting, I don't know which it is. And of course, I mean, my problem is, one of the ways of describing this is that I've got muddy, my painting's got muddy, and one of the things that causes muddy paint is that the areas where the colours are not very much different in value, in other words, they're not sufficiently different in terms of light and darkness, that is also an area where the edges of things are not clear. And of course, the more I do things like add another layer of paint, which I've just done, or which I did before, and start blotting out the dark, that also tends to blur the edges of things, take away the crisp distinction between one shape and another. So kind of looks as though the individual trees are smoking at the moment. That's a bit better. And I might just have a go over the top of the hedge. Might also add some more shape in that area. There's let's just put something up like that that tells us there's a bit of visual interest, or puts a bit of visual interest in that area of the painting. Now, of course, having done that, I'm going to start trying to blot things out. I'm going to have to try and avoid that tree, but Let's see how it goes. You can't make watercolour paint lighter. Yes, you can, Wilberforce. Yes, you can. No idea who Wilberforce is. Alright, let's do a bit more on the other side. That doesn't seem to have lifted very well. Let's try. That might be a bit better. And again, I want to lighten the areas near the treetops, but it's got a bit of light. It's fairly light anyway on that side of the tree that I've just added. So we'll just work on this side. See what I mean about the hard edge having gone away? Let's see if I can use some sort of a... No, that's not helping, I don't think. Maybe I'll have to go through and darken the tops of those trees. Oh, it's just maybe almost there. So this is not working out the best, but I think it's helping a bit. So we got more feeling of mist in general. So again, I'll turn off the camera and look at this from the end of the room. See if we've managed to improve things or make things 100 times worse. Okay, I think we might just be bringing this back from the abyss. There's a dark area here that I want to try and eliminate. So that's more wetting followed by dabbing. Dabbing, he says, rubbing the paper as though he's using a scrubbing brush on it. And the other thing, I think, with this brush again, the other thing I think is that's now getting quite a nice distinction between the trees and the hill, and I think we need to try and match that in the reflection, which is just not quite as distinctive between those two graphic entities. And maybe a little bit along here as well. Because up close this looks like sort of blotted paint. It's not really terribly attractive, but from a slightly greater distance it starts looking like it doesn't start looking, well, maybe it does start looking like it starts looking a bit like mist. So shape my brush a bit, give it a bit of a point so I can try and get in the tops of those trees. As I said before, it's the one of the things you want to try and avoid losing is the sharp distinctions between one coloured area and another. And I note that my trees here are quite pointed. Their reflections seem to have lost their tops. but I don't think that's going to stand out too much. Alright. I'm able to look in the camera viewport at the picture, and that kind of gives the impression of looking at it from a distance. It doesn't look too bad in that. And I'm now wondering whether I want to just put a bit more into those rocks. Ooh, that's going a bit dark. There we are. Right. Dilute that a tad. So it's, yeah, I mean, I've been lightening or decreasing the contrast and increasing the contrast up here, haven't I? Can't make up my mind. But again, looking at it from the other side of the room, I've done enough with the clouds so that it really is very ambiguous as to where the rocks are and where the clouds are. And now I just want to just make it clear that there are some places where there's the mountain, because of course the whole reason that people come to look at this view is because they want to look at the reflection of the mountain in the water. So I haven't got any reflection of mountain particularly, but I do want to see this hill here in the and let's put in just a little bit of an edge down here. That's showing through the cloud. I meant to put that in before and forgot. That's sort of the lower slope of that, I think, or something to do with that. Let's do just a little bit more. So, taking too much of it away. Just want the, let's do. There we go. And there's maybe just a little bit of rockiness in there that is just showing through where the cloud isn't quite as dense. Just to allow us to sort of connect up those bits of ridge. Alright, I think I've finished. I think this is the end point. I might end up trying to sharpen up some of these tree edges. So I've been darkening the trees, and I darkened the trees and then I lightened the background, and said several times that this was taking away the sharp-edged distinction between foreground and background. So let's put some of it back. Paper's not too wet at the moment, I hope. And let's also put some of it back down there. But again, I need to keep the I need to keep the dark sufficiently dark against the light, so there's no point in using medium value paint. It has to be a dark colour. So having said that, I should put some dark on my palette to do that. That's a pointy tree as well. And that one. Seem to have done a whole lot of similarly shaped trees. Well, I started out trying to make the shapes of the trees quite distinctive, or quite distinct. Distinctive. Well, I suppose that is true too. But you fall back on these models that you have in your mind of what a tree looks like. Little lollipop trees that children draw tend to well, I tend not to do lollipop trees, but I do tend to do these conifers that are all very conical. Well, conical doesn't actually refer to the shape of the tree, does it? It's more the fruiting body, the cones. So let's just see if we can variegate them a bit. Yes, they've all ended up with a pointy top and a broad base. So let's give this one a broad top, and it's got an arm now going up towards the middle of the painting. There we go. It's just changed it a bit and also given it a shape that should stand out a bit. Let's do the same. Not so much change the shape of it, but just try to emphasize the darkness of this tree, because we wanted to have a distinct identity in the shapes that are on the page, on the paper. So I haven't done anything to lighten the water in this area, so maybe darkening these trees is not going to. These trees on the right hand side is not going to have a lot of benefit. because the water's too dark. So I think I'll just leave those alone, because maybe we've got enough contrast between light and dark here and here. And just enough with that tree there. It's not so much on the reflection, but in the top. Alright. Third attempt to stop. Is it third attempt? I think it is. So I'll say good night. And will I come back? What was I going to? Oh, no, I was going to just fill that in, wasn't I? All right. Good night. Good night. Good night.